Chapter 3. Woe to the bloody city! It is all full of lies and robberies. The prey departeth not, the noise of the whip, and the noise of the rattling of the wheels, and of the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots. The horseman lifteth up both the bright sword and the glittering spear. And there is a multitude of slain, and a great number of carcasses, and there is none end of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses. Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts, that selleth nations through her whoredoms, and families through her witchcraft. Behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts. And I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will shew thee nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. And I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vile, and will set thee as a gazing stock. And it shall come to pass that all they that look upon thee shall flee from thee, and say, Nineveh is laid waste. Who will bemoan her? Whence shall I seek comforters from thee? Art thou better than populous No, that was situate among the rivers, that had the waters round about it, whose rampart was the sea, and her wall was from the sea? Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength, and it was infinite. Put and Libim were thy helpers. Yet she was carried away. She went into a captivity. Her young children were also dashed to pieces at the top of all the streets. And they cast lots for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains. Thou also shalt be drunken, thou shalt be hid, thou also shalt seek strength because of the enemy. All thy strongholds shall be like fig trees with their first ripe figs. If they be shaken, they shall even fall into the mouth of the eater. Behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open unto thine enemies. The fire shall devour thy bars. Draw thee waters for the siege. Fortify thy strongholds. Go into clay and tread the mortar. Make strong the brick kiln. There shall the fire devour thee. The sword shall cut thee off. It shall eat thee up like the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the locust. Thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars of heaven, and cankerworm spoileth and flieth away. Thy crowned are as the locusts, and thy captains are the great grasshoppers, which camp in the hedges in the cold day. But when the sun ariseth, they flee away, and their place is not known where they are. Thy shepherds slumber, O king of Syria. Thy nobles shall dwell in the dust. Thy people is scattered upon the mountains, and no man gathereth them. There is no healing of thy bruise, thy wound is grievous. All that hear the bruit of thee shall clap the hands over thee, for upon whom hast not thy wickedness passed continually? Here, Nahum basically repeats the words of the Lord, woe to the bloody city, and Nineveh is the bloody city. She basically was considered a spiritual harlot by the Lord, for even though it wasn't a Jewish city, she played the harlot with every phony god that could possibly be, and hugely did this. And the discovery of a new god was like the discovery of some new celebrity, and everything was all wonderful, and everything was attributed good to it, all kinds of other things. It was desecration of everything good. Her punishments that were coming to her were extremely well deserved. She was called the mistress of witchcraft, and she sold the nations to her morally corrupt ideas. It wasn't that just Nineveh itself as a city, as capital of the Assyrian Empire, was morally corrupt, but that the rulers of that country pressured every conquered territory to adopt the religion, the murders, the sacrifices of human beings, all of the things that Nineveh did were to be implemented in all of the countries that they conquered. And they knew that this basically would undermine any righteousness, any determination to do good in any of the countries, and this is what they were hoping for, because the more morally corrupt the religion, the more morally corrupt the people, the easier it would be to control them. In verses 8 to 11, the Lord asks the city of Nineveh, the rulers of Nineveh, "Art thou better?" Now, here he's basically outlining, the Lord is basically outlining that the city of Nineveh was no better than the city of Thebes, also known as No-Ammon, No-Ammon, A-M-M-O-N, in Egypt, which Assyria themselves had destroyed, and Ethiopia and Libya, so Ethiopia to the south of Egypt and Libya to the west of Egypt, which were large countries with large armies, were allies to the Egyptians. But when the Assyrians got down there with their armies, it was the Egyptian army they fought, and the Ethiopian army was nowhere to be seen, and the Libyan army was nowhere to be seen. And their allies were of total no value whatever to the Egyptians, and so the city of Thebes was totally sacked and ruined. And here the Lord is telling the city of Nineveh, you may think you're a great, wonderful thing. You may have all these wonderful gods that you're relying on. You may have this great army, all these horses, all these chariots. You may have done all of these things. You may think that you worship all these gods, and they put everything up there for you. But when the time comes for the destruction to take place, nothing in which you have placed your trust will be of any good to you. No alliances will be of any good to you. None of the gods that you have will be of any good to you. You are going to be on your own, and as we found out in the earlier chapter, that the whole city of Nineveh, the whole Assyrian Empire, would burn like the stubble in the field after harvest. The very last part of this chapter is an epitaph for Nineveh. Nahum was a poet, and he did a wonderful job of writing an epitaph for a morally corrupt people and city that had lost the ability or the will to repent.